Yeah, this is Jeff, adult child, and just want to briefly show you what it looks like out my window here. This is part of Bangkok, Thailand. I'm just outside the city center, a little bit east of the city center, and so it looks like this around here. I really don't want to drop my laptop, but you can see what it looks like. Um, I'm just going to briefly, I just wanted to kind of, let you guys see what it looks like around here. This is what, if you've never been to Thailand before, this is what at least part of Thailand looks like. Um, and this is a great place to do a video like this. It seems a little bit contradictory, but what I'm going to talk about today is sex and love addiction. Um, I would call myself a people addict and a codependent. And that love addiction part of the sex and love addiction is definitely resonates. That definitely resonates with me. Now the sex part that gets stigmatized pretty heavily these days. Even to this day, is still stigmatized. Just like alcohol dependence or alcoholism was. There's a lot of misunderstanding, misinformation, um, and just ignorance when it comes to diseases like process addictions like sex and codependence and things of that nature, or substance addictions like alcoholism, caffeine, nicotine, meth, whatever it might be. There's a lot of ignorance out there, and I just want to try to maybe explain some things about it and kind of how, how what that looks like in my life. So the first thing I want to bring up here is first thing I want to introduce is what is a sex and love addict. Okay, and I'm not going to post anything on the screen right now, but I am going to share some information in a moment. But I want to just briefly talk about what it is for me, what sex and love addiction looks like for me. So basically, I've got to backtrack a little bit. Let's go back in time to when I was probably about 10, 11, 12 years old, somewhere around there. I I was going through a lot of hard things during my childhood. We all were. Everybody in that family was, and everybody kind of dealt with it in different ways. And the way that I dealt with it is that very quickly, I discovered a a massager, and I can't remember how I came about the knowledge or idea that this massager would feel good on my genitals, but my younger brother and I were playing around with this massager one time, and I guess it accidentally went onto my genitals, his genitals, both of ours independently and different. He was playing with it up in the bunk bed above me, and I was playing with it in the bunk bed below. And somehow it touched my genitals. I remember. And I guess it felt so good, that vibration, that I just was like, wow, hmm, let's see where this can go. So basically, at that point, I began to use it and just laid it against my penis until I um, had a dry ejaculate because I wasn't old enough to produce semen yet. So that's how early on we're talking here with this stuff. And I remember there were some porn magazines mixed in there somewhere. Um, our stepfather, he had some, and just like any man would, who's living alone before he gets married, had a stack of porn videos from the '80s. We're talking like I can't even remember the name. American Ecstasy, XXX. I mean, there was some very interesting videos. And I didn't discover those till later. First was the magazines. First, actually, and before that, there was like fantasy from all the imagery you see of sexy elves and druids and the Dungeons and Dragons game. There was a lot of that going on. There were the video games that had women in scantily clad outfits and things like that, fighting, getting beat up, making screaming sounds, erotic noises. So there was a lot of that going on. Um, and discovering this massager is where a lot of that started. So um, I feel like I'm getting out in the weeds here, but none of this is scripted, obviously. I found that was very pleasing, and once I began to dry ejaculate, once that dry ejaculate began to that started to be the number one goal for everything. It's like if I could just achieve that orgasm, it made me feel so good in the short term that it helped me forget about the feelings I was feeling. I didn't have to process anything. I wasn't encouraged to talk about my feelings anyway. I was encouraged to like just go away. We're not going to talk about that. Go away. We talked some, but I had a lot of questions, and I was very curious. I'm an Aquarius, so a very curious person, and that wasn't embraced in my upbringing. So I had to find ways to basically deal with the stuff that was going on around me in the best way I knew how. And porn, masturbation, uh, the massager, all that stuff together. That's where it all kicked off. But so there's the fix, that a sex and love addict is trying to get is from that rush of neurotransmitters that comes from the orgasm. Who cares? Dopamine, serotonin. I'm not going to get into the details on that. I'm just going to say you get a hit. Okay, let's keep it basic here. You get a hit, you get a rush from the orgasm, and you begin to chase that. That works for you, for me, worked for me, and then you begin to chase that. Now, that's okay at the beginning because that's just the porn and masturbation. That's the sex addiction part. Now, what comes later though is when you begin to get in relationships with people that provide you validation. So you begin to get validated by your partners because you're engaging in sexual intercourse with them. You're pleasing the partner. So I was pleasing all the ex-girlfriends sexually, and my identity was tied together with how well was I performing sexually. If I was doing good on the bed in the bedroom, and I was able to maintain that relationship, then I was okay. My life was okay. If I wasn't doing that, if I lost the relationship, my life was over. It felt like my life was over. It's the end of the world. And this is because I did not get the love, the healthy love that I needed as a kid during my developmental stages. It wasn't there. Biological instruments, parents, they may have tried, but they weren't probably capable of that themselves. And that's not blaming, that's not attacking, that's just stating facts. Family dysfunction is generational, and so a lot of the junk gets passed down from generation to generation, and shit runs downhill. So whatever my grandmother or great grandmother was dealing with, or great grandfather, whoever was dealing with, that's going to get passed down. If those people didn't heal, they just had kids and passed their shit on to their kids, and then that got passed on to the next generation, and so on and so forth. So this is probably the first generation that's me and my brothers and my cousins and stuff. This is the first generation probably in my family that's really recognized that there's a problem, or at least trying to take action to resolve what this problem, resolve this issue. So basically, with a love addict, it really means you're a codependent and a people addict, relationship junkie. You can't imagine yourself without an other, without a partner. If you're not with a partner, your life is over. You can't function, you can't think, you can't focus, Your mind is racing uncontrollably, and you can't be alone. It's really hard to be alone. You get squirmy, and you start to want to act out other patterns um, of sex and love addiction. We'll just say love addiction, but the sex part is in there too. And starting to act out old patterns might be jerking off to pornography. So they call that PNM, porn and masturbation. Watching porn, masturbating, and then coming out of that, having that hit, that rush of neurotransmission, that rush you get. But then it's so short lived. Afterwards, then you feel like shit and you feel depressed. And if you've got any kind of genital insecurity, you compare yourself to those porn stars, and then you start feeling worse and like, oh, that's all women want is just that, and oh, it just is nuts how this thing can spiral out of control. So I'm wanting to just talk about this because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I am addressing, mostly what I'm addressing is my codependence, my people addiction, my relationship addiction, and trying to get a handle on that because I do have a hard time being alone. Some people love being alone. I really don't. I'm not saying I like being around people all the time. That's not true. But being alone is tough for me, and I start to cave. I start to. You can see signs of it where I struggle with being alone. Is in my I don't shave enough. I'm not taking care of my hygiene so much, and it's a struggle even to eat sometimes. And a lot and some of this is all just linked back to um, it's connected to um, what I was raised with, how I was raised. I have an anxious attachment style, and I'm having to try to address that. But basically, in this video, I'm just wanting to introduce the idea of what is, if you've never dealt with a sex and love addict, and you've got somebody, well, hey, I don't know if my family admits to it. There's probably some of that in my family as well, but nobody will admit to it. So I'm admitting to these things, and it's hard to be the one who admits to their weaknesses when everybody else is trying to portray such a face of strength, such a persona of strength, false pride, strength, a fake identity, not being vulnerable. A lot of that goes on. Now, some of that's probably cracking open or has been cracking open recently. Some people are trying to come forward and heal a little bit and talk about their vulnerabilities. But I'm trying to be open about it myself and just get it out there. So, what is a sex and love addict? I hope this helps for whatever it's worth, and I'll maybe post another video soon. Okay, all the best to you.